everybody, I'm Natalia Bonner. Welcome back. All right, I'm super duper excited to stop in here today for just a minute to share this really fun design. So I'm currently working on this adorable traverse quilt for my client Teresa, and I'm having so much fun with this quilt. I'm changing thread colors on every single section. I've already used like 9 or 10 colors. I'm using a lot of rulers, just really letting my creativity run wild. So while I was doing a little bit of quilting yesterday, I really just started playing around with my sway machine quilting rulers, and I created this fun little design. So the design that I'm sharing with you today is quilted in a 2-inch strip. So it could be quilted like in a sashing or even a border, but on this quilt I just quilted it across the whole entire quilt, and I love how it turned out. So I used my Sway 3 machine quilting ruler along with my Sway 4 machine quilting ruler. The markings that I'm going to be doing in today's video, I'll use the blue Marked Be Gone marker. You know, I love using this marker, but always make sure when you are using the Marked Be Gone that your markings are removed 100% before you apply any heat at all. You do not want to set those markings into your quilt. Okay, so the thread that I'm using on this particular row is So Fine. I love So Fine thread. I'm using it on most of my quilting, but this is color number 507. On my bobbin, I am loving the pre-wound bobbins lately, the SuperBob, so that's what I'll be using here. And it's actually a minky backing, so I'm just going with a nice neutral color throughout the whole entire backing. That thread just kind of soaks up in. I'll share pictures of the backing and the whole entire quilt when I'm done quilting the whole quilt in the Peace and Quilt Academy. So if you've not enrolled in the Peace and Quilt Academy yet, make sure you run over to our website, peaceandquilt.com, join the Peace and Quilt Academy. I add videos there, multiple every single month. It's this awesome library that is full of over 130 machine quilting videos where I'm showing you how to machine quilt awesome quilts like this one that I'm sharing here today. Okay, so just a couple more quick things before we hop over to my machine. I'm going to be doing all my quilting here on the Gammill 22-inch machine. I am stitching in the stitch regulated mode, and I do have my stitch length set at 13 stitches per inch. Now, the quilting that I'm going to be sharing with you here today is machine quilting with rulers. You can do this on a sit-down machine or a Longarm machine like I'm doing here. You do need to make sure that you do have a ruler foot on your machine as well as an extended base plate, so a large flat working surface. I do my quilting on the Gammill quilting machine, so I have the Gammill extended base plate and also the Gammill ruler foot. I cannot recommend those products enough. I feel like they're an absolute must when doing any machine quilting with rulers. The batting that I'm going to be using here, or that I am using here on this quilt, is 1 layer of the Quilters Dream Blend batting. So this is a really low loft, just a nice soft flat batting. I love it for a quilt like this that I'm going to be adding a lot of detail with my machine quilting. The minky's on the back, so there's already a lot of weight there. So the batting just keeps the quilt nice and soft. And once it's washed, if it ever is washed, it will just have the most beautiful drape. All right, friends, enough of this talking. Let's hop over to my machine. Let's start out with a little bit of marking, and then we'll quilt out these fun circles. Okay, look how adorable those half circles are. That is a 2-inch sashing strip or a border, you could use in their space. So we're going to be using the Sway 3 and Sway 4 machine quilting rulers to mark out and quilt that design. As I was quilting out this design, I really thought about how adorable it would be with really heavy quilting, filling in the background spaces. So another way you could dress up this design is by adding more quilting. But for now, I really looked at this and thought, you know what? Less is more. There's a lot going on this awesome traverse quilt. Like I mentioned, I will be sharing more soon in the Peace and Quilt Academy. I'll start out here today using the blue Marked Be Gone marker, and I'm using this small straight ruler that I purchased from the quiltedpineapple.com. I love those rulers for marking. The size of them is just so perfect. You can see here I'm using that ruler and the Marked Be Gone marker, and I'm marking increments every 2 inches. Now, I'm kind of planning out the design as I'm going. So you'll see as I mark out my first couple of lines, I actually grab that hook end on the Sway 4 machine quilting ruler and mark a couple of curves. I want to make sure this fits exactly like I'm envisioning in my head. I'll continue to work my way all the way across this section, marking those lines evenly spaced every 2 inches. Now that I have those straight lines marked, I basically just defined some spaces, and that's something I often do when machine quilting, and especially machine quilting with the Sway machine quilting ruler. So I've defined these 2-inch square spaces. Now the way that I've designed all of the Sway machine quilting rulers, the hook end on the machine quilting ruler is designed for marking. The curve end on the opposite end is designed for quilting, as well as the concave side on the ruler. Here, this is the Sway 4 first, and then the Sway 3 machine quilting rulers. So the size of circle or curve that the ruler is designed to mark and quilt coordinates with the number on the ruler. So the Sway 3, the hook end is designed for marking, and then the curve end and the concave side are designed for quilting 3-inch circles. And the same thing with the 4 and also the Sway 5 machine quilting rulers. So once I've marked out this design, you can see I'm really starting to kind of play with ideas and see how I want these curves to go. At first I started thinking maybe just a scallop, but then as I started marking, I started seeing how fun it would be to alternate these curves. So stitch one curve coming from the top and then another set of curves coming from the bottom side of that border. So I'll use my Sway machine quilting rulers. This is a design where I am going to go through and use that hook end of the Sway machine quilting ruler to mark out the full design, just because I don't want to confuse myself and mess up any of my spacing. Sometimes a little bit more marking just really helps out in the long run. Now on that hook end of the Sway machine quilting rulers, and if you look really closely here, you can see that there are some lines indicated or marked through that end of the ruler. I'm lining up the line that indicates right through the hook end center. So it comes right to a point in the center of that hook. I'll line those marked lines on the ruler right on top of the ditch and then also on top of my first marked line. So I'll line it up, make my first curved marked line, and then you'll notice I'll flip the ruler. As I flip the ruler, I'm lining those same markings on my ruler right back on top of the markings and the ditch on my design. So I'll repeat that process, marking those curves both with the Sway 4 and the Sway 3 machine quilting ruler on the top and bottom side of this sashing. Now I'm ready to begin quilting. I like to do my quilting because I am working on the Gammill Longarm machine from top to bottom, left to right. So I am actually going to start on the left side. I'll travel along my ditch and I'm going to go across and quilt all of the curves on the bottom side of this border. Even though the designs are already all marked out, I'm still going to use the machine quilting rulers to, first of all, help me quilt nice curves, but also make sure my quilting is nice and precise. So on the curved end, that circular end of the Sway 3, the Sway 4, and the Sway 5 machine quilting rulers, you'll see again there are some markings indicated on that ruler. Right through the center of the circle, you'll see there's an X that's marked. You'll line those lines on that X up right with those lines I've marked, and I should be able to quilt a perfect half circle. So you'll see I'll start out first, stitch it with my Sway 4 machine quilting ruler, then I'll travel along my ditch and repeat the same process using my Sway 3 machine quilting ruler. Then I'll use that straight side of the ruler, travel along my ditch, and repeat that process. So I'll quilt all of those curves all the way across the bottom of this border first. Whenever you're working with machine quilting rulers, always remember gentle pressure. So I'm applying very gentle pressure on my ruler, so gentle pressure against the side of my foot, as well as kind of downward pressure. But then with my machine, I'm also using gentle pressure. So my right hand is holding the handle of my machine, and I'm applying gentle pressure as I glide the machine around the side of the ruler foot. So once I've quilted those circles, well, half circles, all the way across the bottom side of this section, now I'm going to use that concave side of the Sway 3 and Sway 4 machine quilting rulers to quilt that second set of curves. Whenever I'm machine quilting with machine quilting rulers, because I am right-handed, I like to guide my machine with my right hand and hold my rulers with my left hand. When I'm holding my rulers with my left hand, I'm always trying to hold the rulers in a position that feels comfortable to me and to my wrist. I don't want to hold my rulers in some weird, awkward position. So the reason I've designed the Sway rulers like I have with the two sides for actually 3 sides for quilting and the one end for marking, I've designed them like that so you can always be holding your machine quilting ruler in a really comfortable position. So even though I've marked out the lines here, I am still using the markings on the Sway machine quilting rulers. One thing to notice when I'm quilting here with that Sway 3 machine quilting ruler, there's actually a marking along that ruler on the outside of the concave curve. I line that marking right on top of my previous stitch line, and that will help me have the perfect spacing when quilting that inner 3-inch circle. So once I've quilted the first set of circles, then I'll continue along like I did on the bottom side, traveling along my ditch and then working back and forth, holding my wrist where it's most comfortable. So you'll notice I'll stitch a curved line, usually about 1/4 of the circle, then I'll stop. Usually I'll stop with my needle in the down position. I don't want my machine to move. I don't want anything to happen. I want that nice smooth line. So end with your needle in the down position. Then I'll stop, readjust my ruler, and then continue stitching. I'll repeat this process until I've filled in that top side completely. Once that's complete, then I'll use my Peace and Quilt misting spray bottle with 1 cup of water, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, mix it up really well and mist it on those blue marked Begone lines, making sure that my lines are removed 100% before I apply any heat. You can pick up our Sway machine quilting rulers, plus enroll in the Peace and Quilt Academy over on our website, peaceandquilt.com. Have a great day, everybody. The microphone so y'all can hear me a little better. Okay. Got a new shirt too. You guys like it? Got some new merch. I like it. It says mistakes are okay. It's really soft too. I love quilting in sweatshirts. Okay, stop talking to yourself, self. Hey everybody, I'm Natalia Bonner. Welcome back. All right, along with my Sway 4 machine quilting ruler, the markings, edit my reach. The markings that I'm going to be doing in today's video, I'll use the blue mark all. You do not want to set those markings into your quilt. So the thread that I'm using on this particular row is one color, edit, getting way too excited. Okay, so the thread that I'm using on this particular row, machine quilt, awesome quilts like this one that I'm sharing here today. I need a drink. Okay, so just a couple more quick things before we hop over to inch machine. I am stitching in the stitch regulated mode. And I do have my stitch length set at 13 stitches.